On a chilly December morning in 2003, Officer David Chen pulled up to what seemed like a routine call in the quiet suburbs of Portland. The dispatch had mentioned a noise complaint from neighbors, but something in his gut told him this was different. 20 years on the force had taught him to trust those instincts. As he approached the rundown two-story house, the peeling paint and overgrown lawn told a story of neglect. The windows were dark despite the early hour, and an eerie silence hung in the air. Officer Chen had seen his share of difficult situations, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to discover. Knocking on the door, he heard small footsteps and whispers from inside. When the door finally creaked open, he found himself looking down at a young girl, no more than 12, with determination in her eyes despite her worn clothes and tired expression. "Are you here about the noise?" "I'm sorry, I was just trying to get my sisters ready for school," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Officer Chen's heart sank as he took in the scene behind her. 5 younger girls, ranging from what appeared to be ages 4 to 10, huddled together on a worn couch. The house was cold, and the girls were wrapped in thin blankets, trying to keep warm. "Where are your parents?" he asked gently, already dreading the answer. The oldest girl, who introduced herself as Amy, straightened her shoulders and spoke with a maturity far beyond her years. "Mom left 3 weeks ago. She said she'd be back in a few days, but..." Her voice trailed off. "Their father," she explained, "had disappeared long ago." As Officer Chen stepped inside, the reality of their situation became painfully clear. The kitchen cabinets were nearly empty except for a few cans of soup and some stale cereal. The girls had been surviving on whatever they could manage, with Amy doing her best to care for her younger sisters while still trying to attend school. The youngest ones, twins aged 4, clung to each other, their big brown eyes watching his every move. The other sisters, aged 6, 8, and 10, sat close together, protective of one another in a way that spoke of shared hardship. Amy explained how she'd been trying to keep their situation a secret, afraid they'd be separated if anyone found out. She'd been using what little money was left to buy food, helping her sisters with homework, and even attempting to pay bills with crumpled dollars she found in old coat pockets. "I promised Mom I'd take care of them," she said, her voice finally breaking. "We're all we have." Officer Chen felt a familiar ache in his chest. Having lost his wife to cancer 5 years earlier and with no children of his own, he'd thrown himself into his work, trying to fill the void. But sitting there, watching these 6 brave girls who had formed their own small fortress against the world, something shifted inside him. He made some calls, following protocol to ensure the girls' immediate safety. But as he waited for social services to arrive, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just another case. The girls shared stories of how they'd been taking care of each other, how the 8-year-old would read bedtime stories to the twins, how the 10-year-old had learned to braid everyone's hair, and how Amy had been trying to maintain some sense of normalcy despite their circumstances. As the day progressed, Officer Chen learned more about their lives. Amy showed him their school notebooks, proudly displaying her sister's artwork and assignments. Despite their situation, she'd somehow managed to keep them all attending school, helping with homework, and even maintaining decent grades. The 6-year-old, shy at first, eventually opened up about how she loved drawing and wanted to be an artist. The 10-year-old shared her dream of becoming a police officer, saying she wanted to help other kids like them. Each girl had a unique personality, dreams, and hopes, despite their circumstances. That evening, as social services worked to find emergency placement for the girls, Officer Chen made a decision that would change all their lives forever. He couldn't bear the thought of these sisters being separated and placed in different homes. After years of feeling like something was missing in his life, he suddenly understood what it was. What if? He started, speaking to the social worker, "What if I could take them in? All of them?" The social worker looked surprised but not dismissive. "It's not impossible," she explained, "but it would be a complex process." "Are you sure you're ready for such a responsibility?" Looking at the girls huddled together, supporting each other even in their uncertainty, Officer Chen had never been more sure of anything in his life. "These girls need to stay together," he said firmly. "And I need to help make that happen." The next few days were a whirlwind of paperwork, emergency foster care applications, and home inspections. Officer Chen's fellow officers rallied around him, helping to prepare his house for 6 young girls. His 3-bedroom home would need some adjustments, but he was determined to make it work. The girls stayed in temporary foster care while the initial processes were completed, but Officer Chen visited them every day, bringing small gifts, not expensive toys, but necessities like warm socks, school supplies, and their favorite snacks. He learned their routines, their fears, and their hopes. Amy, ever the protective older sister, watched him carefully at first. She'd seen too many adults make promises they couldn't keep. But as the days passed, she began to see something different in Officer Chen, a genuine desire to help, to protect, to provide the stability they'd been missing. One evening, as he was leaving after a visit, Amy stopped him at the door. "Why are you doing all this?" she asked, her voice both hopeful and suspicious. Officer Chen knelt down to meet her eyes. "Because sometimes family isn't about where you come from," he said softly. "Sometimes it's about who stays when things get tough. And I'm not going anywhere." As the first month drew to a close, Officer Chen's home was transformed. The spare room became a cheerful bedroom for the twins, with bunk beds for the middle sisters, and a private space for Amy to maintain her role as big sister while still being able to just be a 12-year-old girl. The house that had been quiet for so long was now filled with the sounds of life, homework discussions, sisterly squabbles, midnight whispers, and occasional tears as the girls processed their past. But more importantly, it was filled with hope for the future. Officer Chen learned to navigate the challenges of suddenly becoming a single father to 6 girls. He learned about hair braiding from YouTube videos, mastered the art of making school lunches, and discovered that his heart had plenty of room to love all 6 of his new daughters. The story of the police officer and the 6 sisters quickly spread through the department and their small community. Neighbors who had never spoken to Officer Chen before started bringing over casseroles and offering to help with childcare. His fellow officers organized a donation drive for clothes and school supplies. But the most beautiful transformation was in the girls themselves. Day by day, their shoulders relaxed, their smiles came more easily, and they began to believe that this time, things might really be different. This time, they might have found not just a house, but a home. As spring bloomed in Portland, Officer Chen's home transformed into a bustling hub of activity. The initial adjustment period brought its share of challenges, but with each passing day, their unusual family grew stronger. The girls, who had once been so guarded, were slowly beginning to flourish in their new environment. Amy, still carrying the weight of responsibility on her young shoulders, struggled the most with the transition. One evening, while helping Officer Chen with dishes after dinner, she broke down in tears. "I don't know how to just be a kid anymore," she confessed, her hands gripping the dish towel tightly. "For so long, I had to be the mom, the dad, everything. Now I don't know who I'm supposed to be." Officer Chen gently set down the plate he was washing and turned to face her. "You're supposed to be exactly who you are," he said softly. "Being strong doesn't mean you have to carry everything alone anymore. We're a team now." The healing process wasn't always smooth. The twins, now settling into preschool, often woke up with nightmares, calling out for their mother. Officer Chen would sit with them through the night, telling stories and assuring them they were safe. Sometimes, all 6 girls would end up in his room, curled up like a pile of puppies, finding comfort in being together. At work, Officer Chen's colleagues noticed the change in him. The quiet, somewhat withdrawn officer had been replaced by someone who smiled more, shared photos of art projects and school achievements, and always rushed home at the end of his shift. His partner, Officer Thompson, often teased him about the glitter that somehow always ended up on his uniform. "You've got a little sparkle right there," Thompson would say, pointing to Chen's badge during their patrol. "Let me guess, art project with the twins?" Chen would laugh, brushing off the glitter while proudly sharing stories about his girl's latest achievements. The same instincts that had made him an excellent police officer now served him well as a father, the ability to listen, to observe, and to be patient even in challenging situations. The 6-year-old's artistic talents flourished with proper supplies and encouragement. Her drawings, once confined to margins of old newspapers, now covered the refrigerator and hallway walls. Officer Chen made sure each new masterpiece was properly displayed, creating a rotating art gallery that made their house feel more like home. The 10-year-old's interest in law enforcement grew stronger as she watched her new father serve the community. She began organizing safety patrols in their neighborhood, complete with a whistle and a toy badge Chen had given her. Her protective instincts, once focused solely on her sisters, expanded to include their entire street. The 8-year-old discovered a passion for cooking after Chen enrolled her in a children's culinary class at the community center. She took pride in helping prepare family dinners, carefully measuring ingredients and learning to read recipes. What started as a way to help out became her special time with Chen, as they experimented with new dishes together. Even the twins, who had been so withdrawn initially, began to show their distinct personalities. One became the family comedian, always ready with a silly face or joke to lighten tense moments. The other revealed herself to be a budding musician, humming constantly and turning everyday objects into instruments. But life wasn't without its challenges. The first parent-teacher conference brought mixed emotions. Chen sat in tiny chairs meant for elementary school students, listening to updates about each girl's progress. While they were all doing remarkably well given their circumstances, there were areas of concern, anxiety, attachment issues, occasional behavioral problems. One teacher gently suggested therapy, and Chen immediately agreed. He found a family counselor who specialized in trauma and adoption cases, and they began weekly sessions. Sometimes individually, sometimes as a group, they worked through their fears and hopes together. The girl's biological mother's absence loomed large in their lives, especially during holidays and birthdays. Chen never spoke ill of her, instead helping the girls process their complicated feelings with honesty and compassion. When Amy found an old photo of their mother tucked in a book, Chen helped her create a memory box where they could keep such treasures safely. "It's okay to miss her," he would tell them. "Having space in your heart for her doesn't make our family any less real." The community continued to rally around them. Chen's elderly neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, became an honorary grandmother, teaching the girls to garden and sharing stories from her own childhood. The local library staff knew them all by name, setting aside books they thought each girl would enjoy. Even the ice cream shop owner memorized their favorite flavors. One particularly meaningful moment came when Chen's mother flew in from California to meet her new granddaughters. Despite initial nervousness on both sides, she quickly won them over with her warm hugs and endless patience for teaching them to make dumplings. Watching his mother show Amy how to properly fold the wrappers, Chen felt his heart swell with gratitude. "Ba," his mother said to him in Mandarin while the girls were occupied with the dumplings, "you found your path. Your father would be so proud." Her words, simple but profound, brought tears to his eyes. As the adoption process continued, there were countless forms to fill out, home studies to complete, and interviews to attend. The girls worried about each step, fear of separation never far from their minds. Chen assured them repeatedly that no matter what paperwork said, they were already a family. One evening, as Chen tucked the twins into bed, one of them asked sleepily, "If you're our daddy now, what should we call you?" Chen's heart skipped a beat. They had been using Officer Chen or sometimes just Chen, and he had never pushed for anything else. "You can call me whatever makes you comfortable," he replied carefully. "Can we try, Dad?" the other twin mumbled, already half asleep. Yes, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Yes, you can. That night, as Chen sat in his quiet living room surrounded by homework assignments, art projects, and the organized chaos that came with raising 6 girls, he realized how completely his life had changed in just a few months. The house that had once felt too empty now felt just right, filled with love, laughter, and the occasional sisterly squabble. As he picked up a stray hair ribbon and straightened a pile of school books, Chen smiled, thinking about how his fellow officers would react if they could see him now. The tough cop who had once chased down suspects was now just as comfortable braiding hair and checking math homework. And he wouldn't have it any other way. As the seasons changed and summer approached, Officer Chen faced one of his biggest challenges yet. After 15 years of working the day shift, his department announced a temporary rotation that would put him on nights. The news sent ripples of anxiety through their carefully constructed routine. "But who's going to help us with homework?" the 8-year-old asked during their family meeting, her voice trembling. "Who's going to make sure the twins don't put soap in the dishwasher again?" Chen had gathered them all in the living room to discuss the change, knowing transparency was crucial for children who had faced so much uncertainty. Amy, now 13, sat straight-backed on the couch, already problem-solving in her mind. "I can help with homework," she offered, then quickly added, "but not like before. Just as a big sister this time." Chen smiled at her addition, proud of how far she'd come in understanding she didn't need to be the parent anymore. "We're going to figure this out together," he assured them. "Mrs. Rodriguez has offered to help in the afternoons, and I've arranged my schedule so I can still take you to school in the mornings." The adjustment wasn't easy. The girls missed their evening routine of sharing dinner together and telling stories about their day. Chen missed it too, but he found creative ways to maintain their connection. He began leaving individual notes in their lunch boxes, each one personalized with inside jokes and words of encouragement. For the twins, he recorded himself reading their favorite bedtime stories so they could still hear his voice before sleep. The 10-year-old, still determined to follow in his law enforcement footsteps, began keeping a detailed, night patrol log of everything he missed while at work, complete with drawings and timestamps. The unexpected challenge brought unexpected gifts. The girls began writing him elaborate letters about their days, leaving them on his pillow to find when he came home. The 6-year-old created a series of Daddy's Night Work pictures, imagining him as a superhero protecting the city while they slept. During this time, their bond with Mrs. Rodriguez grew stronger. The elderly neighbor taught them to make her secret recipe chocolate chip cookies, shared stories about raising her own children, and became an invaluable part of their support system. She understood the girls' fear of abandonment and made sure to be a steady, reliable presence in their lives. One particularly difficult night, Chen received a call from home during his shift. The twins had woken from a nightmare and were inconsolable. Through the phone, he could hear their hiccuping sobs as they asked for him. "Daddy, when are you coming home?" one twin asked, her voice small and frightened. "Soon, sweetheart," he promised, his heart aching. "But guess what? Look out your window at the moon. I can see it too, right now. Whenever you miss me, just look at the moon and remember we're under the same sky." This became their special ritual during night shifts. The girls would look for the moon before bed, knowing their father was out there somewhere, watching over their city and thinking of them. The night shift also brought new perspectives on their family dynamics. Amy stepped up in beautiful ways, not from obligation as before, but from genuine sisterly love. She started a homework club where all the girls would gather at the kitchen table after school, the older ones helping the younger ones while music played softly in the background. The 8-year-old's culinary interests expanded, and she began preparing simple morning meals for everyone. Her proud smile when Chen came home to find perfectly arranged breakfast plates made the exhaustion of night shift fade away. During this period, they also received news that would change their family forever. Their adoption date was set. The courthouse proceedings would make official what they already knew in their hearts: they were a family. The girls threw themselves into preparation for the big day. They picked out special outfits, practiced writing their new hyphenated last names, and created a countdown calendar. The anticipation filled their home with excited energy. Then, 3 weeks before the adoption date, Chen received an unexpected letter. It was from the girl's biological mother. She had heard about the pending adoption and wanted to contest it. The news hit their household like a thunderbolt. Chen immediately contacted their lawyer and called in a personal day from work. He gathered the girls for another family meeting, knowing they needed to face this challenge together. "I'm scared," the 10-year-old admitted, voicing what they all felt. "What if she takes us away?" Chen took a deep breath, looking at each of his daughters. "Listen to me," he said firmly but gently. "No matter what happens, we are a family. Papers don't make a family, love does. And I will fight for you with everything I have." The next few weeks were tense. Their lawyer worked diligently to show the stability and love in their home. Character witnesses came forward, teachers, neighbors, Chen's fellow officers, all testifying to the positive changes they'd seen in the girls. Mrs. Rodriguez wrote a passionate letter to the judge, describing how she'd watched these 6 frightened girls transform into confident, happy children under Chen's care. The girls themselves were interviewed by a court-appointed advocate, each one expressing their desire to stay with the father who had chosen them. The biological mother's challenge was ultimately withdrawn. She had her own demons to battle, and somewhere in her heart, she knew the girls were where they needed to be. Chen made sure the girls understood this wasn't about their mother not loving them, but about her recognizing what was best for them. Finally, the adoption day arrived. The courthouse hallway was filled with supporters, fellow officers in dress uniforms, teachers holding handmade signs, neighbors dabbing at tears. Mrs. Rodriguez sat in the front row, beaming with grandmotherly pride. Each girl stood before the judge, stating their name and their desire to become part of the Chen family officially. When Amy, the last to speak, said, "I want Officer David Chen to be my father, because he already is in every way that matters," there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. The judge, who had seen countless adoptions, seemed particularly moved by their story. "In my years on the bench," she said, "I've rarely seen such a clear example of fate bringing the right people together at the right time." As they left the courthouse that day, now officially the Chen family, they were surprised by a line of police cars waiting outside. Officers from 3 different precincts had arranged an impromptu parade to celebrate their colleague and his new daughters. That evening, surrounded by friends and family at a celebration in their backyard, Chen watched his girls laughing and playing. They had overcome so much: night shifts, legal challenges, emotional hurdles, and emerged stronger. The road ahead would have its own challenges, but they would face them together, as they had everything else. Mrs. Rodriguez appeared at his side, patting his arm. "You know," she said with a knowing smile, "sometimes the best families are the ones we choose." Chen nodded, watching as the twins attempted to teach their older sisters a dance they'd learned at school. "And sometimes," he added softly, "they choose us." The first year after the adoption brought new adventures and challenges for the Chen family. As summer turned to fall, Amy started high school, a milestone that filled both her and Chen with equal parts excitement and anxiety. The morning of her first day, she stood in front of the mirror, fidgeting with her carefully chosen outfit. "What if everyone asks about our family?" she worried, adjusting her backpack straps for the 10th time. "What if they think it's weird?" Chen, who had taken the morning off to drive her himself, watched his eldest daughter with pride. "Our family is different," he acknowledged, "but different isn't weird. Different is what makes us special." The younger girls had made Amy a good luck card, decorated with glitter and encouraging messages. Even the twins had contributed their wobbly handwriting, "You're the best big sister ever." The simple gesture brought tears to Amy's eyes, though she quickly blinked them away, trying to maintain her teenage composure. High school proved to be a turning point for Amy. After years of carrying adult responsibilities, she finally had the chance to just be a teenager. She joined the school newspaper, made new friends, and even started talking about college, something that had seemed impossible in their previous life. Meanwhile, the 10-year-old's interest in law enforcement continued to grow. Chen began including her in age-appropriate community service projects, like helping at the police department's annual food drive and participating in neighborhood watch meetings. Her teachers noticed how she always looked out for younger students, a natural protector like her father. The 8-year-old's culinary adventures expanded beyond the kitchen. She started a lunch trading network at school, becoming known for her carefully packed bento boxes that Chen had taught her to make. Her pride in sharing her mixed cultural heritage through food touched Chen deeply. The 6-year-old's art began winning school contests, her unique perspective catching the attention of her teachers. One particular drawing, showing 6 girls of different sizes holding hands with a tall figure in a police uniform, was selected for display at the district office. The twins, now in kindergarten, were thriving in their separate classes but remained inseparable at home. They developed their own secret language, complete with hand signals that only their sisters could interpret. Chen often found himself amazed at how they could communicate entire conversations with just a look. But life had more challenges in store for the Chen family. During a routine medical checkup, doctors discovered that one of the twins had a heart condition that would require surgery. The news shook their carefully constructed world. The night after receiving the diagnosis, Chen found all 6 girls huddled in the twins' room, sleeping in a protective circle around their sister. The sight brought back memories of how he'd found them that first day, protecting each other against the world. But this time, they weren't alone in their struggle. The entire police department rallied around them. Officers donated their vacation days so Chen could take extended leave for the surgery and recovery. The Police Wives Association organized a meal train, ensuring the family had home-cooked dinners every night. Even the police chief stopped by regularly, often bringing books and games to entertain the girls. Mrs. Rodriguez practically moved in, helping maintain routines for the other girls while Chen focused on the hospital. She taught them to make chicken soup from scratch, saying, "Love is the best medicine, and good soup is a close second." The surgery was scheduled for early spring. The night before, Chen sat in the hospital room, watching his daughter sleep. The twin bracelets they'd made in art class, one for her and one for her sister, glinted in the dim light. He remembered all the times he'd faced danger on the job, but nothing had ever scared him as much as seeing his little girl in a hospital gown. The other girls insisted on coming to the hospital early that morning, each carrying a special gift. Amy brought her favorite stuffed animal from childhood. The 10-year-old had made a Deputy of Bravery badge. The 8-year-old packed her sister's favorite snacks for after the surgery. The 6-year-old created a series of get-well cards, one for each day of recovery. And the twin sister brought their shared secret diary, promising to write in it every day until they were reunited. The surgery was successful, but the recovery tested their family's strength. The girls created a rotating schedule to video chat with their sister every day. They decorated her room with paper chains, removing one link each day until she could come home. Chen spent nights in the hospital while Mrs. Rodriguez stayed with the others, maintaining their routine as much as possible. During this time, something remarkable happened. The girls' bond, already strong, grew even deeper. The 10-year-old stepped up to help the remaining twin with homework. The 8-year-old learned to cook special heart-healthy meals. The 6-year-old covered their walls with encouraging artwork. Amy coordinated everything, proving she could be responsible without carrying the whole world on her shoulders. When their sister finally came home, the house had been transformed into a celebration of healing. Hand-drawn hearts covered every wall, and a welcome banner stretched across the living room. The girls had prepared a special show, complete with songs they'd practiced and jokes they'd saved up. That evening, as Chen tucked the twins into bed, together again at last, the recovering twin asked, "Daddy, were you scared?" Chen paused, then nodded honestly. "Yes, I was. But being brave doesn't mean you're never scared. It means you face your fears with people who love you." The experience changed their family in unexpected ways. They became more openly affectionate, more willing to express their feelings. Family hugs, once reserved for special occasions, became a daily occurrence. The girls started a new tradition of sharing grateful moments at dinner, often mentioning simple things like being all together or hearing both twins laugh. Chen noticed other changes too. His fellow officers began coming to him for parenting advice, particularly those dealing with daughters. The story of their family spread through the department, inspiring others to consider fostering or adoption. Even the tough veteran cops would soften when the girls visited the station, proudly wearing their junior officer badges. One evening, as Chen sat on their porch watching the girls play in the yard, Mrs. Rodriguez joined him with 2 cups of tea. The twins were teaching their sisters a new clapping game, their laughter echoing through the neighborhood. The 10-year-old was proudly wearing her father's old police academy t-shirt, while Amy helped the 6-year-old practice cartwheels. The 8-year-old was setting up a picnic, insisting everyone needed a snack break. "You know," Mrs. Rodriguez said, sipping her tea, "when you first brought these girls home, people wondered if you could handle it. A single cop raising 6 girls?" She chuckled softly. "But look at them now. Look at you now." Chen smiled, watching his daughters play in the golden evening light. They had faced so much together: night shifts, adoption challenges, health scares, and emerged stronger each time. Their family might not look like others, but it was perfect in its own way. "Sometimes," he replied, thinking of that first morning when he'd knocked on their door, "the best things in life come from moments we never saw coming." 3 years into their journey as an official family, the Chen household faced one of their biggest challenges yet. Amy, now 16 and in her junior year of high school, had received an invitation to participate in a prestigious summer journalism program in New York. It would be her first time away from her sisters since their mother left, and the prospect stirred up complex emotions for everyone. "It's just 6 weeks," Amy said during their family meeting, her voice wavering despite her attempt to sound confident. She sat cross-legged on their living room floor, college brochures spread out before her. "And it could really help with college applications next year." Chen watched as his other daughters processed this news. The twins, now 7, clung to each other, their matching worried expressions making his heart ache. The 10-year-old, usually so focused on following in her father's law enforcement footsteps, seemed lost in thought. The 8-year-old had stopped stirring the cookie dough she'd been working on, and the 12-year-old's art pencil hung suspended over her sketchbook. "Before we make any decisions," Chen said carefully, "let's talk about how everyone feels." What followed was an emotional family discussion that showed how far they'd come. Instead of panic at the thought of separation, the girls expressed their fears but also their support for their sister. The 12-year-old even created a special drawing of Amy in New York, complete with a notebook and press pass. "But who's going to help me with my math homework?" the 8-year-old asked, voicing a practical concern. "And who's going to braid my hair the special way?" one of the twins added. Chen smiled, remembering how these same girls had once feared being separated forever. Now they were learning that family bonds could stretch across distances without breaking. "We'll figure it out together," he assured them. "Just like we always do." The decision to let Amy attend the program wasn't easy, but Chen knew it was necessary for her growth. In the weeks leading up to her departure, the family threw themselves into preparation. The 12-year-old created a countdown calendar, decorating each day with New York-themed sketches. The 10-year-old, channeling her future police officer self, researched safety tips for the big city. The 8-year-old, now quite accomplished in the kitchen, worked with Chen to prepare and freeze Amy's favorite meals for when she returned. Even Mrs. Rodriguez got involved, teaching Amy how to properly pack a suitcase and sharing stories of her own first trip away from home. The morning of Amy's departure was emotional but controlled. Each sister had prepared a special goodbye gift. The twins had recorded themselves reading bedtime stories, just as Chen had done during his night shifts years ago. The 12-year-old gave her a sketchbook filled with family drawings. The 10-year-old presented her with a whistle on a chain, for safety. The 8-year-old packed her favorite homemade cookies. At the airport, Chen held his eldest daughter tight, remembering the brave 12-year-old who had opened the door that December morning so long ago. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered. "You're not running away this time, you're running toward your future." With Amy away, the family dynamics shifted. The 12-year-old stepped into the role of eldest sister present, but in a healthier way than Amy had been forced to years ago. She organized homework sessions and helped with bedtime routines, all while maintaining her own interests in art and music. The 10-year-old started a family newspaper, writing daily updates to send to Amy. Her police officer aspirations now included becoming a journalism photographer, inspired by her sister's adventure. The 8-year-old mastered video calls, ensuring their weekly family dinners included Amy's virtual presence at the table. The twins developed a new hobby of writing stories about their sister's imagined adventures in New York, illustrated by the 12-year-old. Their tales often featured Amy as a superhero journalist, solving mysteries and helping people, much like their father did as a police officer. Chen found himself growing too. Watching Amy spread her wings reminded him that all his daughters would eventually do the same. He started having more conversations with each girl about their dreams and aspirations, making sure they knew they could count on his support. During Amy's absence, an unexpected situation arose at Chen's precinct. A teenage girl, caught shoplifting food, revealed she had been trying to feed her younger siblings while their single mother worked multiple jobs. The case struck close to home, reminding Chen of how he'd found his own daughters. Instead of pursuing charges, Chen worked with social services to connect the family with resources and support. His fellow officers, knowing his story, rallied to help. They organized a food drive, connected the mother with job training programs, and set up a childcare network among police families. When Chen shared this story during one of their video calls with Amy, she immediately wanted to write about it for her journalism program. "Dad," she said, her face serious on the screen, "remember how scared I was that first day, when you knocked on our door? But you changed our whole lives. Maybe we can help change other lives too." Her words sparked a new family initiative. The Chen girls, with their father's support, started a community outreach program they called Family First. The 12-year-old designed posters, the 10-year-old organized police department involvement, and the 8-year-old coordinated food donations. Even the twins contributed by making welcome cards for every family they helped. Mrs. Rodriguez, ever their strongest supporter, offered her basement as a collection point for donations. "See what your family has started," she told Chen one evening, watching volunteers sort through boxes of supplies. One act of kindness keeps growing. When Amy returned home 6 weeks later, she found her family transformed. They were still the same loving, supportive unit, but they had grown in her absence. The 12-year-old had discovered a talent for organizing community events. The 10-year-old had started a junior police auxiliary program at her school. The 8-year-old was teaching cooking classes at the community center. The twins had become the official greeters for their Family First program. That evening, as they all sat around their dining table sharing stories, Chen looked at his daughters with pride. Amy talked about her experiences in New York, her eyes shining with excitement about her future in journalism. The other girls shared their own adventures and achievements, each finding their unique way to make a difference in their community. "You know what I learned in New York?" Amy said, helping the twins clear the dinner dishes. "That home isn't just a place. It's not even just the people. It's knowing that no matter how far you go, there's always a place where you belong." Chen watched as his daughters moved around the kitchen in their familiar dance, the 8-year-old storing leftovers, the 12-year-old wiping down counters, the 10-year-old updating their family calendar with new community events, the twins singing their cleanup song. Each girl had found her place, not just in their family, but in the larger community. Later that night, as Chen did his final check on the girls before bed, he found them all in Amy's room, sleeping bags spread across the floor just like they used to do when they first became a family. Some things, he realized, would never change, and he wouldn't want them to. As Amy's senior year approached, the Chen household buzzed with a new kind of energy. College applications, scholarship essays, and campus brochures became regular fixtures on their kitchen table. But it was a different piece of mail that would bring unexpected emotions to their family, an invitation to speak at a national law enforcement conference about their Family First program. The invitation recognized Officer Chen and his daughters for their community initiative, which had grown far beyond their initial expectations. In just 1 year, they had helped dozens of families, inspired similar programs in neighboring precincts, and even caught the attention of state officials. "They want all of us to speak," the 12-year-old asked, her eyes wide as she read the invitation. Now 13, she had become the family's unofficial creative director, designing logos and materials for their program. Chen nodded, watching his daughter's reactions. The 10-year-old, now 11 and still determined to join the police force, practically bounced with excitement. The 8-year-old, 9 now and running a successful cooking program for struggling families, immediately started planning what snacks they could bring. The twins, their confidence growing with each community event they hosted, began practicing their greeting routine. Amy, in the midst of college applications, saw an opportunity. "This could be my senior project," she said, already pulling out her notebook. "I could document our journey, show how one family can make a real difference." The conference was scheduled for spring, giving them several months to prepare. The girls threw themselves into the preparation with characteristic Chen family enthusiasm. Each daughter would share her part of their story, showing how their personal experiences had inspired them to help others. During this time, their family dynamic continued to evolve. The 13-year-old's art had progressed from simple drawings to digital designs, creating professional materials for their program. The 11-year-old started a mentorship program pairing police officers with local youth. The 9-year-old's cooking classes became so popular they had to move to a larger community center space. The twins, now 8, had developed their own special role in the program. They had an uncanny ability to make other children feel comfortable, especially those in difficult situations. Their secret language had evolved into a way to communicate with kids who were too scared or shy to talk to adults. One evening, while helping Chen prepare for their presentation, Amy found an old photo album. Inside were pictures from their first year together, their adoption day, their first family vacation, school events, and quiet moments at home. The changes were striking. "Look how scared we all looked in the beginning," she said, showing her sisters a photo from their first week with Chen. The contrast between those frightened girls and the confident young women they were becoming brought tears to their eyes. As the conference approached, an unexpected letter arrived. It was from another police officer who had started a similar program in his city, inspired by hearing about the Chen family. He shared stories of families he'd helped, including one with 4 sisters who reminded him of the Chen girls. "Your family's story," he wrote, "showed us that sometimes the best way to heal is to help others heal too." The letter sparked a new idea. The 13-year-old suggested creating a network of similar programs across the country. Amy started writing guidelines for other departments wanting to start their own initiatives. The 11-year-old developed a junior police ambassador program to involve more young people. The 9-year-old expanded her cooking program into a full-scale meal delivery service for families in crisis, coordinating with local restaurants and food banks. The twins started making welcome videos for kids in new programs, showing them they weren't alone. The night before the conference, the family gathered in their living room for a practice run of their presentation. Mrs. Rodriguez sat in the audience, along with several of Chen's fellow officers. As each girl shared her part of their story, Chen felt overwhelmed with pride. Amy spoke about that first morning, when a noise complaint changed their lives forever. The 13-year-old shared how art helped her process her emotions and now helped others do the same. The 11-year-old talked about learning to trust authority figures again through her father's example. The 9-year-old explained how feeding people was her way of sharing love, just as Chen had shown them love through his care and protection. The twins, speaking in perfect synchronization, described how being part of a chosen family had taught them that everyone deserves a chance to belong. When it was Chen's turn to speak, he looked at his daughters and found himself momentarily speechless. These young women, who had once been scared girls huddling on a worn couch, were now changing lives and inspiring others. Sometimes, he finally said, the biggest changes start with the smallest choices. I chose to listen to my instincts that morning. These girls chose to trust me. We all chose to become a family. And now, we're choosing to help others make their own positive changes. The conference presentation was a success beyond their expectations. Police departments from across the country wanted to implement similar programs. Social service agencies requested their guidelines. News outlets wanted to share their story. But the most meaningful moment came after their presentation, when a young officer approached them with tears in his eyes. He had recently responded to a call involving children in a difficult situation, and their story had given him hope. I wasn't sure I could make a difference, he told Chen. But seeing your family, hearing your story, it shows that sometimes the best police work happens when we lead with our hearts. That evening, back in their hotel room, the girls held their own little celebration. They ordered pizza, shared their favorite moments from the day, and talked about their dreams for the program's future. Amy had received acceptance letters from several colleges, including one in New York with a strong journalism program. The 13-year-old was already designing materials for new program locations. The 11-year-old had collected contact information from officers wanting to start youth programs. The 9-year-old was planning cooking workshops for the new program sites, while the twins had recorded welcome messages for each location. They were no longer just a family healing from their own past, they had become a force for positive change. As Chen watched his daughters excitedly planning their next steps, he remembered something Mrs. Rodriguez had told him years ago: sometimes the best families are the ones we choose. Looking at his girls now, he realized they had done more than just choose to be a family. They had chosen to take their experience and use it to help others make positive choices too. That night, as the girls finally drifted off to sleep, Chen stepped out onto the hotel balcony. The city lights sparkled below, and he could hear distant sirens, other officers out there, maybe facing moments that would change lives, just as his had changed that morning so long ago. He thought about all the families they had helped, and all the families they would help in the future. Their story had started with a simple noise complaint, but it had grown into something far bigger than themselves. It had become a reminder that family isn't just about blood or legal documents, it's about the choices we make and the love we share. The success of the conference led to a whirlwind year for the Chen family. Their Family First program had taken root in police departments across the country, but the biggest changes were happening right at home. Amy's high school graduation was approaching, and with it, the first major transition their family would face. One spring morning, as cherry blossoms decorated their street, another life-changing letter arrived. Amy had been offered a full scholarship to her dream school in New York, along with an internship at a prestigious newspaper. The celebration that followed filled their house with joy, but Chen noticed the quiet worry in his other daughter's eyes. That evening, after the initial excitement had settled, he found the twins sitting on their back porch swing, unusually quiet. At 8 years old, they had spent half their lives with Chen as their father, yet the idea of Amy leaving stirred up old memories. Remember when Amy went to that summer program? Chen asked, sitting between them. Remember how scared we were then? But she came back, one twin said softly. And she'll come back this time too, the other added, trying to convince herself. The 13-year-old, overhearing the conversation, joined them with her sketchbook. She had been working on a special project, a series of drawings showing their family's journey from that first day to now. The pages captured everything: their adoption day, family vacations, homework sessions around the kitchen table, community events, and countless small moments that made up their life together. "Look," she said, showing the twins her latest drawing. It showed their family as a tree, with strong roots and branches reaching outward. Just because the branches grow doesn't mean they break away from the tree. The 11-year-old, who had recently been accepted into a junior police cadet program, added her own perspective. "Amy taught us how to be brave," she said. "Now it's our turn to be brave for her." The 9-year-old responded in her own way, by teaching Amy to cook all her favorite meals. Their kitchen became a place of preparation, both culinary and emotional, as they spent hours together recording family recipes and sharing stories. As Amy's graduation approached, the family faced another unexpected development. Their story had caught the attention of a documentary filmmaker who wanted to feature them in a series about unconventional families making positive changes in their communities. The request sparked another family meeting. "It's not just our story anymore," Amy pointed out, sitting cross-legged on their living room floor. "Think about all the other families we could help by sharing it." The 13-year-old saw an opportunity to showcase their Family First program on a larger scale. The 11-year-old thought it might inspire more police officers to look beyond traditional law enforcement methods. The 9-year-old hoped it would encourage more community support for struggling families. The twins, after some thought, had a simple but powerful observation: maybe there are other scared kids who need to know they can have a happy ending too. Chen listened to his daughter's perspectives, marveling at their wisdom and compassion. These were no longer the frightened girls he'd found that December morning. They had grown into thoughtful young women who understood that their story could be a beacon of hope for others. The documentary crew began following their family's daily life, capturing the ordinary moments that made their extraordinary journey possible. They filmed morning routines of organized chaos as everyone prepared for school, family dinners where each person shared their day's achievements and challenges, and community events where the Chen family worked together to help others. One particularly moving scene occurred during a Family First event at the police station. A young mother with 4 children had come seeking help, reminded Chen of that day years ago when he'd first met his daughters. The twins, with their special gift for connecting with children, immediately engaged with the youngest kids. The 9-year-old brought out snacks she'd prepared, while the 11-year-old showed them around the station. The 13-year-old, noticing the mother's distress, quietly shared their own story, explaining how they'd gone from scared and uncertain to strong and supported. Amy, home for the weekend, joined the conversation, showing pictures of their family's journey on her phone. Watching his daughters in action, Chen realized they had come full circle. They weren't just survivors of their own difficult story, they had become authors of hope for others. The documentary captured this transformation, showing how one act of kindness could ripple outward to touch countless lives. As Amy's graduation day drew closer, the family prepared for both a celebration and a transition. The 13-year-old created a special memory book, filled with contributions from each family member. The 11-year-old organized a surprise gathering of all the families they'd helped through their program. The 9-year-old planned a feast featuring all of Amy's favorite dishes. The twins worked on their own special project, a series of video messages for Amy to watch when she missed home. Each one contained a different family memory, complete with their unique twin commentary and reenactments of favorite moments. The night before graduation, Chen found Amy in her room, surrounded by partially packed boxes. She was holding the old stuffed animal she'd had since before he met them, the one that had seen her through so many difficult nights. "I'm scared, Dad," she admitted, looking more like the 12-year-old he'd first met than the confident young woman she'd become. "Not of going, I'm scared of leaving them. I promised I'd always take care of them." Chen sat beside her on the bed, picking up a framed photo from her nightstand. It showed all 6 girls at their first Christmas together, their smiles still tentative but hopeful. "You did take care of them," he said gently. "You kept them safe until I found you, and you helped them learn to trust again. But now it's time to let them be strong on their own, just like you're being strong enough to follow your dreams." The graduation ceremony the next day was a family celebration like no other. Chen's fellow officers attended in uniform, creating an honor guard for Amy as she received her diploma. Mrs. Rodriguez, now using a walker but still their strongest supporter, beamed from the front row. Representatives from several Family First programs around the country had sent video messages of congratulation. But the most touching moment came during the family photos after the ceremony. As they gathered together, the twins suddenly produced a surprise. They'd created a special sash for Amy that read, "Best Big Sister Ever," in carefully painted letters. The 13-year-old had added her own artistic flourishes, the 11-year-old had attached a junior police badge, and the 9-year-old had woven in dried flowers from their garden. As they posed for pictures, Chen looked at his daughters, all of them growing, all of them changing, but still bound together by love and choice. They had proven that family wasn't about perfect circumstances or traditional structures. It was about choosing to love, choosing to trust, and choosing to help others do the same. 20 years had passed since that fateful December morning when Officer Chen knocked on a door, answering what he thought was a routine noise complaint. Now, on a bright summer afternoon, he stood in his backyard, surrounded by the evidence of how far they'd all come. The occasion was a special family reunion, bringing together not just the Chen family, but many of the families they'd helped over the years through their Family First program. The documentary about their story had aired 5 years ago, inspiring police departments nationwide to adopt similar initiatives. But more importantly, it had shown countless struggling families that hope and healing were possible. Amy, now 32, had become an award-winning journalist, known for her stories about community policing and family advocacy. She'd just published her first book, Knocking on Hope's Door, chronicling their family's journey and the ripple effects of their program. But her proudest achievement was standing right beside her, her own daughter, a curious 5-year-old who had Chen's kind eyes and her mother's determination. The 13-year-old artist was now 33, running a successful design agency that specialized in creating materials for nonprofit organizations. Her work with Family First had evolved into a nationwide brand, instantly recognizable to families in need. She'd married another artist, and their house was filled with the same creativity and warmth that had helped heal her own childhood wounds. The 11-year-old had achieved her dream of becoming a police officer, now 31 and serving as the head of her precinct's Family Services division. She'd expanded the Family First program to include specialized training for officers dealing with children in crisis. Her fellow officers often said she had her father's instincts for knowing when a routine call might be something more. The 9-year-old, now 29, had turned her love of cooking into a successful chain of community cafes that operated on a pay-what-you-can model. Each location also served as a training center for struggling parents to learn culinary skills and find employment. She'd never lost that belief that good food could heal both body and soul. The twins, now 28, had taken different but complementary paths. One had become a child psychologist, specializing in helping siblings cope with trauma and transition. The other worked as a social worker, often partnering with police departments to implement family support programs. Together, they developed a revolutionary approach to keeping sibling groups together during difficult transitions. As Chen watched his extended family gather in the backyard, daughters, sons-in-law, grandchildren, and countless lives they'd touched, he remembered Mrs. Rodriguez's words from so long ago, "Sometimes the best families are the ones we choose." Mrs. Rodriguez herself had passed away 5 years earlier, but her spirit lived on in the garden she'd helped them plant, still blooming with her favorite flowers. The reunion was more than just a family gathering, it was a celebration of how one moment of kindness could multiply across generations. Among the guests were children who had grown up in families helped by their program, now successful adults paying it forward in their own ways. There were police officers who had started similar programs in their cities, and families who had found hope through their story. The documentary crew had returned to film this reunion for a special anniversary update. They captured touching moments, Amy's daughter playing with the children of families they'd helped, the twins doing their secret handshake with a group of young siblings currently in the program, the 11-year-old officer showing her badge to wide-eyed children who saw in her a promise of what they could become. During the celebration, Chen found himself sitting on the old porch swing, now weathered but still strong, like their family bonds. Each of his daughters took turns joining him there, sharing quiet moments amidst the festivities. Amy showed him her daughter's latest drawing, a family tree that included not just their immediate family, but all the branches that had grown from their story. "She sees our family the way you taught us to see it, Dad," Amy said. "Not limited by blood or circumstance, but expanded by love and choice." The 13-year-old shared sketches for a new community center they were designing, based on the warm, welcoming feeling of their first home together. "Remember how you let me cover the walls with my art?" she laughed. "That's why every room in this center will have space for children to express themselves." The 11-year-old told him about a recent case that reminded her of their own story. "I knew exactly what to do," she said proudly. "I just thought about what you would do, look past the surface and see the hearts needing help." The 9-year-old brought him a plate of his favorite cookies, made from the recipe they'd perfected together during those early days. "Every time I teach someone to make these," she said, "I tell them it's not just about the ingredients. It's about the love you put into it." The twins, still synchronized in many ways, shared news about a national initiative they were launching to reform family services policies. "We want every scared kid out there to have what we had," they said together, just like they used to do as children. A chance to stay together, to heal together, to grow together. As evening approached, the family gathered for a group photo. Chen stood surrounded by his daughters, their spouses, his grandchildren, and representatives from the many families they'd helped over the years. Looking at the camera, he saw not just his family, but a living testament to the power of choice, love, and second chances. Later, as the party wound down and the younger children fell asleep on blankets in the grass, Chen's daughters gathered around him on the porch. The scene reminded him of countless family meetings over the years, but now they were all adults, each carrying forward the legacy of love and service he had taught them. "You know," Amy said, holding her sleeping daughter, "that morning when you knocked on our door, we thought it was the end of something. We were so scared. But it was really the beginning. The beginning of everything," the twins added in unison, making everyone laugh just like they used to. Chen looked at his family, not just his daughters, but all the lives they'd touched, all the changes they'd inspired. That single moment of following his instincts had created ripples that would continue long after him, touching generations to come. As the stars began to appear in the summer sky, Chen remembered all the nights he'd spent wondering if he could really be what these 6 girls needed. Now, watching his daughters surrounded by their own families and the community they'd built together, he knew the answer had always been simple: love was enough. Love had always been enough. "Dad," Amy said softly, "tell us the story again. About the morning you found us." And so, surrounded by the family he had chosen and who had chosen him, Officer Chen began the story they all knew by heart, but never tired of hearing. "It was a cold December morning, and I thought it was just another routine call.